All right, well, welcome to the main event featuring Katherine Meisenheimer. We're so happy to have her. Hi, Katherine, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the invite. It's very flattering to be asked to do this, I have to say. So thank you.
Yeah, it's well deserved, as I'm sure we will learn about in a few seconds. So we'll get started right away. So what first inspired you to jump into the world of real estate?
Well, it was not my first choice actually, and I think like many people in real estate, I had another career before I got into real estate. I had about a 12-year corporate career because I got out of school and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom was like, "Well, you like books. Why don't you try to get into publishing?" I was like, "Well, that sounds fun." So I got a job in educational publishing and I did that for about 12 years. And what I discovered is I liked publishing. I didn't like business. I didn't like the corporate life. I wasn't a very good corporate team player. I didn't like sucking up to people I didn't like in order to get ahead. I just was not a good corporate game player. And I didn't want to become one either. Like I knew what I needed to do, I just didn't want to do it. So, and then I also kind of got to the point where I was like, I was working really hard. I was traveling a lot for my business. I was gone a lot, and working long hours. And I got to the point where I was waking up every day, every day. I'd wake up, and one of the first things I'd think was, why am I working so hard to make other people rich who don't even appreciate it? And I would think that like every day, why am I working so hard to make other people rich who don't even appreciate it? I want to work for myself. And so, with impeccable timing, I decided in like 2008, 2009 that I thought I was going to go ahead and quit my job and figure out what I wanted to do next, like work for myself. And I had a couple ideas in mind. So I did. I quit my job in 2009. And I explored a couple other things that I had been pretty serious about, and they didn't work out. One of them, when I really looked at the numbers of this type of business I was thinking of going into, I was like, I don't think this is going to work. Like, I should have stayed at my old job. And then another one, I was like, I don't think this is for me. I don't want to have a bunch of employees. Like, I want to work for myself. And so I was living off my savings. And at a certain point, I was like, and always in the back of my mind, I had this thought that, if all else fails, if I don't find something else I want to do more, I'll get my real estate license because I was living in Boston. And, fortunately in Boston, you can do rentals and like make enough money to pay your bills. And Massachusetts, I think still, but definitely at the time, it was like very quick and cheap to get your real estate license. It was like, I don't know, maybe a 20-hour class and a test for probably $500 and you could be licensed in like 2 weeks. And I was like, great. So at a certain point, I was like, okay, I got to make some money. I got to make some money. I can't mess around anymore. I got to make some money. So I went and got my real estate license and I actually interviewed with several different offices, like different types of offices, and kind of strategically chose the one I went to thinking I need to make money right now. Like I've used up a lot of my savings. I need to make money right now. So I need to do some rentals while I'm growing my sales business. Of course, this was 2009. I was totally oblivious to the fact that the real estate market was in complete meltdown mode. Totally passed me by. I mean, it's not like it was in the news or anything, but so I, decided that was the perfect time to get my real estate license and get into real estate and try to move into sales. My plan always was long-term move into sales. I needed rentals for the short term to make money, but I didn't want to do rentals forever. I didn't think I wanted to move into sales. So I chose a company that had a really strong rental focus, but also was trying to build their sales business. Had hired a new sales director, and I was like, okay, I can work with her and she can teach me. And that is what happened. So really the first couple years, the market was in full meltdown mode. It was not a great time to be building a sales business. It took a few years. I did rentals for like 2 or 3 years. And it wasn't really until 2013 that I really was able to kind of let the rentals go mostly and focus full time on sales. Although I never really let the rentals go. I do about 20 to 25 rentals a year. without even trying because these are my long-term clients and they just give me their rental listings. Or maybe I sold them the investment property. I've had a lot of that over the years too. I sold them a condo that they turned into an investment property when they moved to their next thing. I sold it to them as an investment. So I don't run around with tenants anymore because I just don't have time mostly. But I do 20 or 25 rentals just from rental listings because these are my long-term clients and I definitely don't want them talking to a different agent.
Yeah, no, you don't want
Um,
it that, and that's ongoing business that you could bank
Ongoing
on in
business.
the future.
Yeah, every couple of years I make more money on that place that I sold them 10 years ago now. And I still make money on it every couple of years. I, make another $1,000, $1,500. Like it's great. It's fantastic.
And I think that is so fantastic that you're touching on that because it also speaks to a side of the transaction that I think a lot of agents don't pay attention to, which is follow up after the initial transaction. I think so many agents lose so much business from not following up after the first transaction is.
Mm.
So tell me about like your very first transaction. Do you remember? I know you said you kind of started in rentals. Like how touch and go was your first transaction?
So the very first house I ever sold, I had done a first time home buyer class in the office because I was like, I need some leads here. What am I going to do to get some leads? And there was another woman in the office who'd done one. And I said, hey, do you mind if I just like sit in? I won't say anything. I just want to sit in and see how you do it. She's like, sure, come on over. So I sort of saw how she did it and I, picked her brain a little bit about how to organize it. And then I set one up and I had like 30 people RSVP and I was super stoked. I was like really excited. Of course, 3 people came, one couple, one single woman. But the one couple bought a house with me. That was my very first single family home I ever sold. And it's so funny. This was actually a really good first sale for me. I learned so much from this. And one of the things I learned is it doesn't matter what I think of the house. Do they like it? Do they want to buy it? My job is to help them achieve their goal of buying the house they want to buy. So this house was a foreclosure, and it was in the most terrible location imaginable. You came off the interstate exit ramp and there was a gas station and immediately beside it was this house. It was on a 6-lane street because there was a 4-lane street with turn lanes directly across the street from the mall entrance, diagonal to the interstate entrance beside the gas station.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
goodness.
and I could tell they liked it. I'm like, I don't want to not sell it to them. Like I would, want the money, but I was like, this is a terrible location. So what I finally said was, so this is kind of a busy street, like understatement, but I'm like, this is kind of a busy street and kind of, there's sort of, it's noisy, like standing, sitting in your backyard, would it bother you? Would it stop you from enjoying your yard? Like, is the noise that you hear in the house from the highway, from the street, gonna keep you up at night? They're like, no, it's fine. My client looked at me and was like, it's perfect for me. I can roll out of bed, hop in my truck and be at work in 10 minutes. I'm like, okay then. And they bought the house.
Yeah.
So I felt like I asked the question, they answered it, they said they wanted the house, I helped them get it. And that was actually a really good learning experience for me. It doesn't matter what I think. I would never buy that house. They thought it was great. They still
Yeah.
live there. They still live there.
They
So
still live there to this day?
they still live there to this day. They have 3 kids in the house now. Um, yeah, it was right for them. Doesn't matter if it wouldn't be right for me. It doesn't matter. It's right for them.
So how did you end up you started in rentals, you kind of had a unique entry into real estate. How did you land on deciding to focus on buyer representation?
Well, I don't know that I made that deliberate choice, really. It's just kind of how my business grew. But I discovered that I do like working with buyers. I've always felt like for most agents starting out, it's easier to get buyer leads than sales leads, than listing leads, because especially first-time home buyers, like they're totally clueless. If you don't know very much, they know less. You still look like an expert to them. So, and there's ways that you can acquire buyer leads that is not as easy on the seller side. At least I've never found it as easy. So, just kind of how my business grew because I was buying some online leads. I was doing first-time homebuyer classes. I was hosting open houses for other agents. I was like doing some networking group kind of things. And what was coming to me was buyer leads, partly because those were the leads that I was putting myself in a position to receive. Because I do think they're easier to get when you're starting out. At least they were for me.
Yes.
But I found that I really love working with buyers, and I especially really love working with first-time home buyers. And I think there's a few reasons. One of it really is just like kind of aspirational. Like I feel like I'm doing good in the world when I help people buy their first home. The average homeowner has a net worth of over $40,000 in America. The
Mhm.
average renter has a net worth of under $1,000.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the mere fact of owning a home puts people on a completely different financial trajectory. And it's home ownership is the number one way in America to build intergenerational wealth, like build a legacy that you can leave to your family. Like it's home ownership. That's all there is, pretty much, for most people. It's their single biggest asset. Like it makes me feel good to know that the work I'm doing makes a tangible impact in people's lives. Like I don't talk about that a lot with clients, but that's the truth for me. But I also really like working with first-time homebuyers for a few reasons. Like they listen to me. They need me and they listen to me. Like anything I tell them, they're like, oh, thank you. Oh, that's so helpful to know. Oh, and if I tell them to do something, they go do it because they know they needed advice and guidance in a way that more experienced people in real estate sometimes fight you on because that's not how it worked last time, or they don't want to do it that way. First time buyers, I feel like for the most part, like they're open to my advice and guidance, and I love that. And first time buyers are not last time buyers usually. So it's a
Mhm.
great like business building for the long-term strategy because they buy their first home and then in 6 or 7 years they're buying another home. And then maybe in 6 or 7 years they're buying another home. And then maybe their kids are buying a home, and also they're at a point in their life often where they know other people who are also in a similar stage of life who may be looking to buy a home. And if you play your cards right, you can get a lot of referrals from first-time buyers to other first-time buyers because that's their
Yeah.
friends. So I've always loved first-time buyers. And at this point, I do kind of build my business around it, but it wasn't a deliberate strategy at the beginning. It was just what I could get. Like I was taking any
Yeah.
leads I could get, and that's what I could get.
And I love that because it's so touching and it's so real that it is the single biggest way that someone can impact their financial trajectory for their entire life. I think it's also a very unique perspective because I think a lot of the time people perceive a home for like buyers and first-time home buyers specifically as a step towards becoming a listing agent and not
Hmm.
necessarily as a goal within itself. So I really like it. So
Claire, can
now,
I just say, can I interrupt and say,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there is a really common saying in real estate that I think is just a lie. Like
Yeah.
keen on that, which is list to last.
Oh my God. Yeah. No.
I hear that so often,
Yes.
like from coaches and real estate trainers and other agents, like well-meaning people who tell you if you want to last in real estate, you have to become a listing agent. And it's just not true. I've been doing this for 15 years. And I would say in any given year, like at most, a third of my business is listings, at most. And it's all like these are things that come to me organically because it's people I worked with before who are selling or a referral mostly. And it's like you don't have to become a listing agent to last in real estate. There's lots of ways you can set up your business.
I love that. I also think it's such a limiting belief, right? Because I
Yeah.
think when we think about limiting beliefs, our first thought is that it would have to be a negative belief for it to be limiting. But any belief that prevents you from considering other options is limiting. So I truly agree. Like there's a million ways to be successful. You can't limit yourself to the idea that this is the only way I'm going to get there. And you're living proof of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now that we're here in your real estate career, you are predominantly a buyer's agent, a very successful one, specifically first-time home buyers, which is honestly unheard of. You're a rare species for sure.
Good.
How,
Send it my way.
yeah. How are you consistently generating leads? Like, what I think that's one of the other questions that people go through is like, okay, now that I figured out what I'm going to focus on, how do I focus on it? How do you generate leads
Well, I
now?
think it's always important to have multiple lead streams in any kind of business you're in, not just real estate, but and whether you're on sales or rentals or listings or investors or commercial, whatever, you have to have multiple lead streams. You can't rely on only one thing. And there's a lot of different ways to get buyer leads. I feel like I mentioned some of them. You know, you can buy leads, which I feel like is my strategy on buying leads. My advice on buying leads is early in your career, like when you just need leads, but if you need to buy some online leads, buy them. But it's too expensive to have that be a major like pillar of your business for very long because you're just giving away so much of your money. You need to work on, but do that while you're developing other things that are going to be streams that give you consistent leads. And then maybe you just kind of turn that into something where you occasionally get something when you're not super busy, you'll take an online lead. Um, but that is definitely what, and I did at the beginning of my career. That is one of the things that helped me move over from rentals to sales is that I was buying leads from realtor.com. And I wasn't, you know, at the time they weren't doing you pay us a referral fee only if it closes. It was like you pay us a certain amount of money every month and we're going to guarantee to give you a certain number of leads. And, you know, most of them are crap. But I was able to, you know, get enough of them to turn into something that I could, it was like that helped launch me. So online leads is one, definitely doing open houses for other people. I don't do that so much anymore because I'm busy with buyers on weekends. But when I wasn't, I would host open houses for anybody who'd let me do one. And I learned a lot about how other agents, I could see how other agents were advising their buyers as they were at their house. I could see what buyers were reacting to positive and negatively in homes. This was all like helpful, just information. But also I was able to pick up some buyer leads from, you know, unrepresented buyers. I think the best strategy on that is do cheap houses in cheap neighborhoods where first-time home buyers are going to be, because if you're doing the expensive houses in expensive neighborhoods, those are usually trade-up buyers and they have agents already. Cheap houses in cheap neighborhoods are more likely to be first-time buyers who don't have an agent yet that you can pick up. That's my experience. Um, but so yeah, open houses, online leads, first-time homebuyer classes, that's been huge for me. Networking groups, Stacy did a great talk in our sales meeting this month on networking groups. I thought that was 100% spot on. That's been somewhat effective for me. I think I'm finally figuring out the networking trick, which is the best networking person that you can network with is a lender at a bank. I wish I had figured this out like 15 years ago.
You said a
Um,
lender at a bank?
a lender at a bank, somebody, a loan officer who works at a bank, not like at a mortgage company. I spent a long time partnering with lenders who worked at mortgage companies, and I would give them like all my buyers, and they were great. They were great people. They got me to the closing table. They did a good job for my clients, but they never had anything to give back to me because nobody's heard of like mortgage network or guaranteed rate or anything until their agent says you should talk to this lender about getting a mortgage. If a average person thinks I need to get a mortgage for my house, they go to their bank because that's where they already do their financial business. And so you're much more likely to get referrals back from a lender who works at a bank because they're getting clients who don't have agents yet that they can refer to partners they want to work with, which hopefully is me. And so if you have a lender from a bank or a credit union or something like that in your local area who has given you a referral, that is gold because it is so hard to find a lender who gives referrals back. You want to partner with that person and start feeding them stuff. And it's usually like I give them three, they give me one, I give them three, they give me one, but still, I'll take the one. It's more than I got for the last 10 years. So, yeah, that's my tip on that.
That's amazing. And I feel like if I were an agent right now, I would like clear my schedule and have a whole list of every bank in the area
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go
Like
talk to their
go in
lending
and talk to the
manager.
mortgage people and figure out if they're going to be a good, like, do you like them? Do you want to work with them? Do they seem knowledgeable? Does it seem like their back office is going to be able to get stuff done? Like you do need them to get you to the closing table, obviously, and you need to want to work with them? And do they understand like the referral relationship? Are they going to give you stuff back? Just because they have it doesn't mean they're going to give it. But is it somebody who understands the referral relationship? And if you can find a few of those people, like a few of those people would be great. So you can give your client options. Pick any of these 3 or 4 people. They're all wonderful. I don't care who you work with, but here's 4 people you can try if you want a comparison shop. And you've already like curated the list. And then if you're feeding 3 or 4 people, hopefully 3 or 4 people are feeding you, it helps your business grow.
That's amazing. And you could really kind of go prepare. Yeah, I mean, knowing how to maximize that relationship once you establish it is really great. Knowing if, to your point, if they'll be willing and understanding what a referral relationship is huge. To know that they know how this works is important. So I'm really, really glad that you shared that. So you also talked about how one of the ways that you get leads is events, specifically first time home buyer classes. What impact have those had? But how did you kind of like get started with doing those type of events?
So, I mean, first time home buyer classes have been huge for me over the years. It really has been a major driver for my business. Sometimes people directly from the classes, and sometimes people who are referred to me on the side, like apart from the class, from the other people that I'm working with to do the class, because the class isn't only me. Um, at the beginning, I was organizing classes. And so I would call up a lender and a lawyer and a home inspector and be like, do you want to do a class with me? And of course, they'd say yes. And I would kind of organize the whole thing and I do the marketing and the advertising and try to get people to come. And you'd like have 30 people sign up and 3 would show. And it was discouraging. But, if you got something out of it, great. Then I was really fortunate. I won't tell the whole story. We don't have time, but I was really fortunate to get hooked up with an organization, a nonprofit organization that was sponsoring first time home buyer classes here in Massachusetts. In our state, we have a number of different state sponsored first time home buyer loans. The Mass Housing Loan, Mass Housing Partnership, the One Loan. There's the One Plus loan, One Plus Boston loan. There's like different loans that are sponsored by the state and like underwritten partly by the state. They're providing funds to provide discounts. But in order for people to qualify for those, there's usually income qualifications, but they also have to take a first-time homebuyer education course, which is offered through nonprofits in partnership with the state. So there's nonprofits all over Massachusetts that do this class. And they need people to teach it. Like they do parts of it, and then they bring in a lender and a lawyer and a real estate agent and a home inspector and maybe somebody else. And they need people to come in and do like an hour talk. And they kind of have the curriculum. It's like, here's what we need you to, here's the outline of the talk. Do this. So it's like they do all the marketing, they sign everybody up, you show up and teach. And so I was really fortunate to kind of stumble into an opportunity to teach one of these classes. I didn't even really know it existed, but I had this opportunity to teach one of these classes and it went well. And they kept inviting me back. And then they introduced me. I got a call from another nonprofit saying, I got your name from the coordinator at nonprofit A. We have an emergency. Our speaker for tomorrow is like super sick and can't do it. Could you teach the class? I'm like, sure. And so then I started teaching for organization B, and then they introduced me to organization C. And so like now my goal is to teach at least one class every month for somebody. And it's usually more like 9 or 10 in a year. And my goal for every class is get one buyer. And it doesn't always happen, but I've been doing this for long enough. And the class coordinators are like my A+ clients. I've never sold any of them a house and I don't even care because they make opportunities available to me that get me business. So I take them to lunch. I bring them holiday gifts. This is genuine. These people are keystones of my business because they're making opportunities available to me that give me clients to work with. And I've been doing this long enough and I feel like we know one another well enough now that sometimes they'll just send me kind of one-off referrals on the side. Like somebody will come in for home buyer counseling because they do that too. And they won't have an agent and they'll be like, you should call Katherine. And so I get those people too. And so, if you don't live in an area where you can do these classes or the people, the nonprofit in your area is kind of booked up, They don't need anybody. Do your own classes.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to do your own classes, but over time, it can be effective. You could do it in the office. If you have a um, adult ed organization in your area that you want to
Mhm.
work in, see if somebody is already teaching a first-time buyer class for that adult ed thing. And if nobody's doing it, do it. If somebody's already doing first-time home buyers, do a different class. Do like a buying your first investment property class, or downsizing class, or a senior moving class, or like whatever population you want to work with. Do a class for, because a lot of the adult ed have somebody who's doing the first time home buyer class, but that's all they're doing. There's other classes you could do.
Oh my goodness, you
And they're
dropped
doing the
so
marketing for
many
you.
pearls. Yeah, and you dropped so many pearls. First pearl I want to point out is that they don't necessarily need to be like a client of yours to still be a cornerstone of your business. And I
Mm,
think being able to recognize that someone is so impactful that you are willing to invest time and energy and all of this stuff in their direction, even though they're not in the technical term a buyer or currently in business with you, is super important. And I also think, to your point, not every town, city, and state are going to have that nonprofit for home buyers, so on and so forth. But the continuing ed for adults, you can find that at your local community college. You can find that just about anywhere, a local arts center.
mhm.
A really it's a really and I guarantee you there's not a whole lot of agents in any given area doing that. It's not like super saturated, so there won't be a lot of competition. Catherine, you share so much good stuff.
Yeah, I think we're kind of out of time. We probably
I
we probably
know,
made
I
it through five of
know.
the questions,
I'm
Farah,
gonna
because I just keep talking.
I know it's okay. It's good. I love listening to it. I'm gonna skip kind of to the end, but I do want to let everybody know Catherine and I are working on a buyer mastery class that we will be revealing in the fall. So don't worry, this is not the last time you're going to hear from Katherine Meisenheimer. Let me see. Ooh, let's do one more touch. How do you position? This is a huge skip. So now let's get to you working with buyers and in transaction. How do you position your buyers to stand out when writing an offer? Just a few quick tips about
Okay.
how to do that.
Okay. So writing an offer, a conversation I always have with people, a couple things. Conversation I always have with people is think of yourself 3 months down the road. And I want the decision you're making today to be one that you feel good about 3 months down the road. So I do not want you to be sitting in your new living room, looking around and thinking, geez, I got taken. Because no matter how much you like this house, if you feel like you got taken somehow and got caught up in the bidding war and made a bad decision, you are not going to like it. And that does none of us any good, which is true. Like I
Yeah.
can get paid once and they move in and feel like this was not right. They will never work with me again. They will never refer me. I get paid once, but I don't get paid the next 10 times from all the future business I could do with them and their contacts. So I never want them to, and I say this to them, I never want you to move to think 3 months down the road, I got taken. So, but I also don't want you to be sitting on your couch in your apartment, looking on Zillow and finding out what somebody else paid for this and thinking, geez, if I'd known I could have bought the house for that, I should have bought it. Then make
Yes.
that offer and try to win, move in and move on with live your happy life. So don't
Yes.
nickel and dime yourself out of a house you like, but don't put yourself in a position where you're going to regret it either. So where's the stopping point? And that's the offer we're going to make. And then we let the chips fall. And if it works out, great. Move in, live your happy life. And if it doesn't, that's okay. We'll go find another house. Good luck and God bless to those other people who wanted to do more. Let them have it. We'll find something else. I'm not going to give up unless you give up. If you don't give up, I won't give up. We'll keep going. There's always another house out there. And I sometimes tell them, this isn't exactly answering your question, but I will tell them, you know, it's a really competitive market and you might make several offers before you win. And it can be very difficult because
Mhm.
you've put your hopes and dreams, like you've seen a house and you've fallen in love and you put your heart on the line. You make a great offer. You made a great offer. You put your heart on the line and your heart got crushed. The other, you said, I want to marry you. And they said no. And it's like heartbreaking. but what your emotions are telling you is that you missed out on your dream house and somehow you're now doomed to live a second best life because you missed your dream
Yes.
house. And so like now your emotions say nothing else is ever going to be as good. And it's like somehow my life isn't going to be as good because that was my one perfect home. The truth is, there is no one perfect home. There are hundreds of houses you could buy where you can live a very happy life. And when you say it out loud, like, of course, and it's totally like it's when you say it out loud, like you're not doomed to an unhappy life just because this didn't work out. They're like, of course not. But that's what your emotions are going to tell you. So you have to remind yourself you're not doomed to an unhappy life. There's another house coming. There's something better coming for you. We are going to keep going. But make your best offer. Don't nickel and dime yourself out of a house you love and then find out on Zillow what somebody else paid and be still sitting in your living room, in your apartment, on your couch, looking at houses. Buy the house and move on. So I try to help them write as good an offer as they feel comfortable with. And
Yes.
then we let the chips fall. And then I always try to present I sell their offer and them to the seller. So when I send in the offer, I write a cover note. You know, a lot of agencies now won't present buyer love letters. They if the buyer writes one, they will not present it to the seller. But there's nothing stopping me from writing a
Yeah.
cover note on the offer and doing all the same things the buyer would have done in the love letter in my cover note, which usually does get presented because the listing agent will forward the offer with my note attached. And so I will write, when I send in an offer, I'm always like, "Hi, Farah, I am pleased to present the attached offer from my clients, Bill and Sally. Bill works at wherever and is a, physicist, and Sally is a fourth grade teacher, and they love this house because," and like I do the buyer love letter in like one paragraph, who the people are, like the story of their family, why they like the house. And then I'm like, let me give you a quick summary of the offer. And then I'm like, and then I do like a numbered list with in bold. I'll be like price 500,000. And then if I have anything to say about that, I'll say that not in bold. But so I'll do like price, financing, down payment amount, and like, is it a conventional loan? Is it FHA? Like, what is it? So price, financing, closing date, inspection terms, like usually inspection, then closing. And then if there's like anything else that I want to point out, like if maybe I've told them and convinced them to do larger than normal deposit amounts, I'll say, they're offering, instead of 1,000 with the offer, they're offering 10,000 with the offer because they want the seller to know they're serious, well-funded, and ready to go. And on the financing line, I always mention like who their lender is. And I'm because the seller wants to know that the offer that they're accepting is going to close. That's obviously they want the best offer they can get, but they also want to take an offer that's going to close. It does no good for them to accept an offer that's 30,000 higher that ends in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
They want to know this deal is going to close. So I'm selling my clients as serious, like good buyers. I'm selling me as the agent they want to work with who's going to get this deal to the finish line. I'm selling my lender as a lender that's going to get this deal done. And this is like a well-qualified buyer who's already been checked out. And so I do a cover note, like a little bit about my buyers and how wonderful they are and why they love your house, stroke, stroke. And then a quick summary of the offer, like all the salient points and why this matters to the seller. And it's like I
Yeah.
try to keep it as brief as possible. Like just the bullet point in bold. And then if there's a couple things to say, like why this lender's great and they're going to get the deal done, and any special terms we're offering that we want them to notice that will make us stand out. And then I'll be like, thanks. If you have any questions, please let me know. We look forward to the seller's response. We really hope to work with you to make this deal happen for both parties. And then I always text or call them, but usually text because people don't answer their phones and people don't check their messages, but they look at their text. So I send the offer and then I immediately text the agent to tell them I sent it because sometimes it gets lost in spam and they didn't get it or somehow I had the email wrong. Like, so I always text them right away that I sent it. And then if we didn't win, I always call and say, and I'm gracious as I can be about it. I'm like, thanks because they usually email and say, I'm sorry to say the seller accepted a different offer. Thanks for your offer. And that's usually all we get. And so I immediately pick up the phone and I call the agent. And when I do this, I get an answer about 2/3 of the time. It's good. And I'll say, congratulations to you and the seller. Thanks for letting me know so quickly that sorry that we didn't win, but congratulations to you and the seller. Can you tell me anything about what made the difference? And I just let them tell me what they feel like they can tell me. And then if they are talkative, I'll maybe ask some more questions, but I try to find like how many offers were there? Was it price? Was it terms? What was it that made the difference? Because then it gives me something to go back with my buyers to feel like and I'll even say to the listing agent, this is really helpful. I so appreciate you doing this. It helps my clients understand what they need to do better next time. And that's the truth. Um, Before I write the offer, I try to always ask the agent what's going to make a difference to the seller. And sometimes, I mean, they'll usually say something, and a lot of the times it's just very generic, best price and terms. But sometimes if there's something that matters to the seller and we can give it to them, give it to them. So I
Yeah,
always ask up front, what's going to make a difference to the seller? And then if we can do it,
yes.
we do it. So,
I
and we're,
love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking. You and I can gab for
I
forever,
know.
but we only had this 30 minutes. Thank you so much again, Catherine. This was awesome. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future for a buyer mastery class. I think that's going to be amazing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being asked. I hope this was helpful to people. And yeah, if I can help anybody with anything, feel free to call.
All right. Thank you so much and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.